recording? Yeah, it started recording now. So now this is going to be the class, and then the class is going to be uploaded as usual. Guys, you haven't seen the tutorials because, by the way, if you didn't know, I know how many views you can see there, so hardly anybody has watched tutorials. So when it comes to issues like that, you don't want to watch the tutorials, then I'm gonna have to go refer to the tutorials because I cannot repeat myself too much. My throat is limited. Okay, so otherwise I will be in pain all the time. So this is I'm gonna share my screen now so I can show you the work. So I'm gonna go here, screen, and I'm gonna share screen 2, go live. So is everybody see my Maya screen file, screen sort of streaming thingy?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, everybody seeing this? Okay. Yeah, we are recording. That's good. So, okay. And I think, can you see Unreal?
Yes.
Yeah, you see Unreal and you see Maya, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, you can see both of them, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that you can see both so I don't have to go back and forth on you and get all stuck later on. Okay. So, first thing first. The file section here, I'm gonna go into file and I'm gonna open a scene. I'm gonna drag it up here, so I'm gonna open it. So I'm just gonna open temporarily I think this is the one that we said that was gonna be the final. This is the one that I did from last year, so I'm gonna be using this. So I'm gonna open this and I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of the file per se as it is. Okay. So at the moment, this is the published version. And the published version has this fix that we did. We remember this section, it was inside this at the same level as the main, together with the motion system. So the thing that we had to do is just drag them out, middle click and drag them out, so it is in the actual, this deformation system, which is the skeleton, is actually in the world space and is not within a node that has another node and connections, because otherwise it gets really complicated. So that is one of the requirements. We need to have this guy here, and then we need to have the geometry here. Now, remember when we hit the publish button here, what we did with this publish button, and then here in the help says that what you're doing is, at the beginning we were working this way. We were having the model, which is the one that we had. Okay, that's all clean. The one we started creating it when we did this section, the pre. Then we did all the rigging, and then we published, and then what we did, we pretty much broke this connection. Okay, and you can see that this button publish, what it does, it just breaks that connection and converts whatever it was a actual reference, it converts it into an actual geometry here. Okay, now if you want to make changes to your rig, you cannot do it in this one. You had to go in the previous one, and that's what this is 9. I will go into step 8 and I will fix it, and then I will republish a new version. Okay, you cannot do changes to this because that's already been published. You broke that sort of when you hit the publish button, you broke the reference system. Okay, you broke it. You cannot go back. Again, if you want to make a change, let's say you forgot about control, whatever, you want to do that, you have to go back to that step in particular. That's what I kept telling you. Please save things in steps, so you know it's 001, 002, so you know you can always go back. And the rule of the thumb is that you always have to do something I normally save it, as my rule of thumb is that I always say when I do something drastic, like for example, when I have my joints in the right place, it's going to be my first version, 001. When I merge it to the other side and everything is working, and I scale all my controls accordingly and everything is nice, that will be 002. And then so forth, and then until then, when I do the skin weights, I will do my 003, 4, and then at the end I say, okay, this is my step 8, and then this will be my step 9, which is my final rig. And that's the one that is produced here with the publish button. Again, if you need to do changes, you need to go to at least 008, or if you have to go further and you have more, then if I'm gonna say, oh my god, I forgot to put one joint here, like I did, but that's fine. I already told you how to fix that. Then I have to go to 001, for example, and then do the change, and then cascade, and then it's going to take me a long time. That's what I ask you to keep an eye and keep testing your rig so it works. You don't have to go and do that. Okay. So again, you broke the reference. There's no more reference. If you open 008, that will be like a little diamond here saying that, hey, that model is an actual reference. And you can double check here in the reference data. You can see there's nothing, no referencing system in here in place. Okay, this was the publish, the final. Now, this is perfect because what we're going to do is from now on, we are going to go and say, well, I'm going to do an animation and I'm going to reference this rig. And I'm going to be referencing only once. And again, if you want to go and do changes, you do the changes, you fix it, you create a new version, and then when you go into the animation, you say, hey, this guy is an old one, go into the reference and then point out to the new one that I just created. And you should not lose any of your animation unless you add an extra limb or something like that and say, obviously that is new and you will not have animation for that, and then you have to animate it again. Okay? Now, the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna start with my fresh scene, okay, and then just work on that. But before we do that, I would like to perhaps, well, actually, I'm gonna do the animation first. Talk to you about the animations, and then I'm gonna do the Unreal part, so you can see which is the part that you have to actually export. Because if I don't have the animation, then you will not know what it is. So. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do now. So I'm gonna actually start my animation, and for that I'm just gonna create a fresh scene, and then I'm gonna reference that final rig. That's gonna be the workflow. Do not animate on that. In my case, the CRA 09 final rig. Do not animate that. Animate a reference to that file. So if you need to make changes, then you can just repoint it to that new file that you created, and you will not lose the animation. So you go here, reference editor, you create a new reference, I think create reference, and then I'm gonna point to that reference, which is that file, which is just open, which is, where was it? This one. The step 9 final rig, that's the one that I just opened. So now I'm gonna create a reference to that, hit reference, continue. That's some stuff in the background, and then this is what we get, okay? Now, I'm gonna start animating. I'm gonna just save this guy. Just gonna save it, and I'm gonna call this. I think I did a test last week, and I think I renamed it already. So no. Test animation. No, that's fine. I'm gonna call this week 08 underscore. I'm gonna start with the idle animation. So I'm gonna do the idle 001. Okay. I'm gonna put here week A 2020, so I know which year it is. idle.001.ma, and I say this. Okay. And I'm gonna be saving 001, 002, and then at the end I put a token which is underscore final, so I know which is the file. Okay, that I'm working on. Okay, so this character obviously is all done, it's all rigged, it's all up and running. All I have to do is start the animation. Okay, now the first thing I need to do, and I think this is obviously something that I normally do, and when I do, I start putting my animations in 100. Don't ask me why, I just like to do it that way. I start from 100 and then to whatever files I need. Okay, now for the idle, you can start this on, doesn't matter, you can start this in 10,000. It will not make any difference. When you export, you're only going to export from, let's say, from 100 to 130, and then in Unreal it will be 30 frames. It will not say, oh, that you start in frame 100, because the tick of the clock inside the Unreal, it just happens every tick, every frame. So it's real time. Okay, so you don't have this 00. When you export an FBX from here, you're going to have the 00, the 100, the 101, and so forth. It will be just 30 frames that you export it, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to just see this so I can see the geometry. This stuff here was, I did these things, put set joint to hidden, and I think I put, there's one here that you can actually put the joint. I think I selected the joint and the controls, and I put them here so I can have everything clean. And I put the joints as well in an extra layer so I can actually hide them. And then this is what they all used to be there with, or just the geometry. Okay, that's come from the other. And as you can see now, this stuff is just referencing that file. You see the little diamonds in there. Okay, it's been referencing. Okay, so for an idle, the idle is probably one of the easiest one that you can do, but perhaps probably one of the most important ones. Perhaps not the most important one, but the one that gives the character or the actual personality to the character. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pose this character, and I'm going to create only 3 frames. Okay, normally when you have a game, you will have your character, and the character will be on an idle station. It will be stationary, it will be in a pose, and it will be perhaps looking around and then moving up the head up and down, and then it will probably be just like a little breathing stuff happening in there. Okay, that's normally what you have in an idle. There are more idle. You can create several idles, and then with logic within the game, you can actually trigger based on environment, based on certain conditions. I don't know. They can trigger it like, I don't know, if using an environment that is raining, it could be, or the character could be doing something different. Like, I don't know, trying to clear the head with the face out with water coming down from the forehead. I don't know, anything. That's all logic. So, but you have to create those loops for the programmers to trigger those animations in real time. But obviously for us, it would be something way more, way simpler than that, because we are not going to do that kind of programming. We're just going to do a simple animation now. Okay, so first of all, I would like to load up my UI, and I click this white UI here, this little white icon that gives you this sort of UI that you can use for easily pick and select your characters. And this is just a color character picker. It's called character picker. So you can click here, you can see you can easily select things, and then select the whole hand, the wrist. You can click in here, and that will be the IK. What would that be? Yeah, that's an extra pull there. That's an extra control. That's the aim, but doesn't matter. We're gonna keep it simple. So as well, here you can get these controls. So you can actually select them from here. If you find that it's too difficult to select them from there, you can select them from here. Now these guys just try to use this. It's easier, I think. Try to get used to the character and go and play, and you can work it out what each one of these does. Okay, so it's just for you to get familiarized in your own time and how this character is set up in terms of the animation controls. Okay, so let me check that everything is up and running and recording. Yeah, everything is recording. Okay, so first of all, I said I'm gonna start in 100, and I know that for an idle I only need 3 keyframes. Okay, and I think let me open this something here quickly so I can tell you that for this I didn't have any reference. I just sort of eyeball it, but for the other ones I did have some reference. So I'm gonna go into here and I'm gonna show you what are the reference, and I think let me see source images. Okay, yeah, so pretty much for the walk cycle I use this, and this pretty much will be the amount of frames that you will need. This you will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames to create one step. You see, this one is the opposite of this, and if you want to create the whole thing, you need to create the same thing in this section, and it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 frames, for example. And then the last frame will be exactly as the first one. You have to make sure that happens, otherwise you will not get a loop. You will get a flickering. Okay, so this is just for the walk cycle. For the run cycle, I use this. Okay, and for the jump, I use this. Okay, this as well. That will be the contact keyframes. Okay, I got this book. This is from a book. I got this book in university. If you need it, just let me know, and I can probably arrange for you to go and pick it up if you want. But you can find these things online easy. Again, this is just one step. You can see this is the opposite of this. And then if you want to create the rest, you have an extra step, which is all the opposite. Okay, so for an idle, only you need 3 frames. Okay, the first frame is exactly the same as the last frame, and 1 frame in the middle, which is like, let's say, the breathing. So I'm gonna create here 3 frames. Okay, so I'm gonna go here 100 to 103. Okay, again, you can start this from 0, 1, it doesn't matter. I like to work like this. Okay, so it will be frame 102. Frame 102. So it will be 3 frames. Okay, this frame will be exactly this frame, and this will be the in between. Okay, so I'm gonna do it here, but I'm not going to keyframe it because otherwise it will take me a long time. I'm just gonna tell you what you should do when it comes to posing it. Okay, the next thing you need to do, you got this sort out. you got the picker here, you got the character, now you need to pose it. But before we do that, we have to double check on something, guys, that's very important. We have to go here into the settings, and we have to make sure that we are working on, I always forget what is animation. Nope, is animation. That will be interface. Let me go through some of them. I can't remember what it is. I mean, this one I told you that needs to be in DirectX so you can get that sort of caching. The next one I always forget what it is. I think it's time slider or something. Settings, nope. This one doesn't need to change. Animation, I think this need to be GPU override parallel. Cache playback is very important. This is all the stuff. Time slide, that's the one. You need to make sure you're working on 30 frames per second, guys. Please do that. If you don't do that, guys, you're gonna get wrong timings. It's gonna look slow, it's gonna look fast, I don't know. Playback speed, make sure that you don't have play every time because you will not get the right speed in here. Play every frame, not gonna work. It has to be 30 frames per second, the same one you use here. The reason we're using 30 is because I have multiple 30. In this case, games work like that. You get 30, 50, 90 frames per second. This is a pretty common lingo when it comes to your graphic card. Say, oh, my graphic card, yeah, I got 60 frames per second on my game, on my graphic card, or 90 frames per second, or whatever. And it's pretty much a benchmark these days when it comes to graphic card manufacturers. Say, oh, they tested and you go 97 frames or 90 frames or 120 frames when you go those RTX cards, real-time ray tracing, all that stuff. Okay, so you have to make sure you have these two settings in place. Okay, at least. And then another thing as well that I like to have this guy on, and you can have that guy by just going into display, heads-up display, and you have, I don't need current frame, I need just the frame rate. So I get this. So when I play, I know it is hits 29.3 or 30, then I know I'm whatever speed again the viewport is, my graphic card is providing me the right speed for me to gauge if my animation is correct in terms of timing. Okay, and then the next thing you need to do is just pose the character. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these guys to IK by selecting the IK switch controls. And I explained to you last week what the IK and FK does. I think it's easier. You only have two controls instead of going for every single one of the joints, and then you have to animate more. I'm gonna keep the spine as an FK because it's just not gonna be running or anything like that. So I'm happy with that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pose the character. Okay. Now the posing is very important because that will give the personality of the character. So normally what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly here try to give you what I think a pose will be. Okay, so I'm going to select this control and I'm going to move it here. So I'm going to put this there. Okay, I'm going to put this one here. And I'm going to do something where it's called, this is too much at the moment, but I will show you how to fix that in a minute. So I think this one, I'll go there, probably like that. Okay, I'm going to rotate it a little bit like that so I get this. Okay, in this is what it's called contrapposo. Okay, I think it's Italian for the contra pose, I suppose, the opposite pose. What I mean is, if you have one leg forward, you will have the opposite arms or the opposite limb as well forward. So that's why it's the opposite of that. So you will have perhaps something like this, like that. Okay, just gonna move this in here. Okay, like that. I'm gonna just pause and talk to you about that, and then I will open the file where I already have this animation in place, or at least the keyframes, the first keyframes. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. Okay, I'm just gonna, it doesn't look natural. Fingers, obviously, they don't look natural. The good thing about this is you can actually select them. So you select this, and this here selects all the controls of the fingers, and you can just pretty much click here and then close him a little bit, then curl this guy like that, and then you curl this one a little bit more, and then this one a little bit more, and then this one even more. So you get that sort of look like this. And the thumb as well, curl the thumb a little bit. Okay, maybe like that, a little bit more, maybe softer this way perhaps. Okay, now a little bit of twisting in the weight here, so you can just do perhaps not that, but perhaps this control like that. I don't know, a touch like that, so you can get this line down and then this line opposite, so you can take the chest and then sort of do it like a opposite there. I'm going to rotate this guy like this. Okay, I'm going to take this the neck and then make it look up a little bit. Okay, now if I select these fingers, okay, I don't have to go, if I want to copy this on this side, all I have to do is select these fingers and then go here into mirror, go into the options and tell them, hey, for whatever I have selected, the control selected, mirror on X. So I'm gonna take what is on the right to the left, and then right to left, not swap but mirror, and then see what happens. There you go. You see, you don't have to go and do that again. So they are actually mirror. Okay. So now this doesn't feel natural. The wrist rotated that way. So I'm gonna rotate it like that. Maybe this one should be a little bit like that behind. Maybe this one. Maybe this one is too off like that. Just to make it as natural as possible. So I can just. But you can see this is very time consuming, man. So I'm gonna take this, then probably move it down a little bit. I don't know, something like that. This is not gonna work now, but I'm gonna open the one that I already done in terms of the poses, okay? So I'm gonna do that. Okay, now you can see this is contraposed. So this leg is forward, the other one is forward, this leg is backward, the other one is backward. Okay, so that will be back, that will be forward, forward, back, back, something like that. However you want to do it. You can look at reference, obviously, and then if you pose the character, then you will do this, or you can just put it opposite if you want. You can do this. You can do this back if you want, and then this forward if you want. Okay, then maybe open this. It's up to you. Let's try it like this and see what it looks like. Now this one, I don't want to see the arms like this because it doesn't look natural. Perhaps something like this. The fingers, maybe this needs to be a little bit twisted in a little bit. Like that. This like that as well. Okay. Maybe the fingers here need to be closed a little bit more, perhaps. No, this one a little bit more. And this one a little bit more. Like that. So you got that pose, and then you hit this button, okay, and then with that is selected all the control, and then you press. You have to go to the first frame. I don't know why I have 128. Supposed to have 100 here, and 102. 3 frames. First frame, last frame, this one. Okay. So we go here. With this selected, I want to close this. This selected. Then we press S, and we keyframe everything in there. Okay, and then we middle click and drag, and then we go to the last frame. Now, when you middle click and drag in here, what you're doing is whatever you have selected, in this case all the control, and you middle click and drag, you will take the same value and then drag it all the way to the end, and then you press S, and then you're pretty much making the the animation like not doing anything at the moment. So if I go here into animation, you can see, close this, you can see that the animation here tell me that nothing happens during time. Look, during time, all the way there, you go here, 100, over time, it hasn't moved anything at all. Everything is in the same value, or whatever value we put in the initial pose. So otherwise, we haven't done anything in terms of the actual. Okay, in terms of the actual animation. Okay. So here we have, let's select all. We have all this control and it's doing nothing. Okay, 1, 2. Oh, it keeps moving this. Okay, 3. So we go frame 1, frame 2. It's exactly the same. Now the frame in the middle is what we're doing, that little breathing thing. Okay. So ideally, I'm gonna do is roughly here. I'm gonna select this guy and I'm just gonna move it down. Whoops. I'm gonna move it down. I'm going to as well move this guy down like that, and then select this guy here and then move it down. Okay, and then perhaps because it's breathing, that will be perhaps going a little bit like this, not too much perhaps. Like that, I don't know. And then obviously while you breathe down, then you move your head up a little bit, something like that. And again, you select all and you press in that middle frame, you press S. Why keep doing that? Frame 2, frame 102, so I don't mess it up. Okay, again, look at this. So I'm doing this. Let's say that that's what you want to do. Okay, so I'm gonna, let me see, I got this one, and this one in the middle. Perhaps I'm gonna take this and then move it out and then press S to that one. You get that, okay? Now these are the keyframes, okay, that we need. 3 keyframes. So we hit play, and obviously this is so fast. It's being cached, it's playing at 30 frames per second, but you cannot gauge timing, okay? There is no timing in there. It's only 3 keyframes, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that file that I have the first pass of the actual idle. So when I have a keyframe that I have to put a little bit more time, and I'm done. And that's what I work. I work idle 1, 2, and then final. I'm going to open idle 1, which has already been keyframe. And again, I'm going to do this. I'm gonna I think this is already being switched. So I'm gonna put this one. Don't worry what I'm about doing now. I just want to go to that same situation that we had before, 102, and this one to. Oh, sorry, this one's here. Go to 101. Sorry, it's just that this one already. The next step that I'm gonna do, I already did in here. So I'm gonna just recreate it. Okay, so I got 3 keyframes like before. 102. Okay, this is exactly what we have. So you can see now that this looks a bit, much better. See, this one has the pose, this one has the spine. It looks better in terms of the posing. I invested more time, of course, and then you can get this. You can see, so you can see that it's breathing. Okay, you can see this, and you obviously cannot gauge the timing. Okay, so now we have the keyframes, which are called the key poses, or the passing point, or just the contact points. There's many ways of calling them. Okay, and that will be pretty much these ones, the equivalent of these ones in the walk cycle. Okay, that will be the 3 frame we did. Will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For the run, for one step is 6 of them, and for the idle it's only 3 for the whole thing, because it's gonna be just an idle. Look. You start the first frame is exactly as the last one. Look, first frame and last one are the same. The one in the middle is that passing information. So it's like breathing. Look, when I play like that, obviously it's not real time, but it's just playing it one by one using the mouse here. Okay. So what do you do next? Okay, now, like I said, you have no sense of timing. At the moment, we all have the character just doing 3 key poses. That's it. Now we're gonna do timing. Now we're gonna say, hey, based on this character and how big it is, how long do you think this guy would do to do a whole cycle from the initial pose to the last pose and the breathing in between? And that's what you do is you scale the keys. This is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna click this button so I can have more keys now here. Okay, I'm gonna give it to, I don't know, 60 or whatever. And then I'm gonna click this button that will select all the keyframes. Okay. And now I'm gonna take these keyframes, okay, and I can scale them. You can scale them from here, but it's not accurate as scaling them from here. And I think I mentioned that last week, how to scale them. What you do is, if you wanna select, first of all, you need to select which is the range of frames that you need to scale. Okay, so you go here. If you wanna scale, if you wanna select this, you go into, for example, 1/6. You press Shift, click and drag, and it creates this sort of special sort of connection that you can actually say how many frames do you want to encompass in this sort of temporary selection. Obviously here at the moment there are no frames because the frames are here, and that is stated by these little red dots, or red lines here, sorry, that you have in this time slider saying, hey, at frame 1 there is some keyframing happen, on frame 101 there is some keyframing happen, and then on frame 102 will be the same. And you can corroborate that by checking out that this stuff here has that red dot, means that there are some keyframes. So we don't need that. We need to select all these guys here. So what you do is you go to the first frame, you shift select, and you click, and you pretty much encompass the whole 3 frames. And then with this button here, you will scale them. With this button, this here, you can offsetting. By offsetting, if I click here, I'm just moving the keyframes to start in a different time. I can make them start 120 instead of 100. You can see how when I move them here, the keyframes move from here to the right. Like the one in the middle is for offsetting. Look, I'm offsetting the keyframes, and don't go too far, otherwise you will not see the first frame. And then this one is for scaling. So when I mean scaling, I am looking at timing. I am looking at saying, hey, based on the morphology of this character, how big it is, how long do I think this guy is gonna take to do one breath? Then I can keep repeating, and I can keep repeating, and I can keep repeating in the computer, in the game, or whatever. It could be looking around, it could be scratching his head, it could be, I don't know, anything. You've seen that the games these days are quite elaborate, and they have several idols, not a single one. And for that, we just had to click on this little icon, this here, which actually allows us to scale. If you click here, you can see that, oops, no, there. If you click on this button there, you can see that I can actually start scaling. So now, whatever was 101 to 100 from 102, now you can see that if I let it go here, you can see that now my last frame that was 102 now is 109, for example, which means that now the same thing is taking longer. Now when I play it, if I click here and I play it, you can see now I get a little bit more timing. But if we, let's say that we're going to analyze from 100 to 100 and now another thing you need to do, guys, is very important, is when you scale, things don't snap into the actual round number of the frame. You can see this guy is not right on 101, and you can see here selected, you can see this point 104.3, so you can get rid of that, and you can see how it snaps. So you go 100, 104, and this is 108. And now if I say, okay, I'm gonna analyze into 108 and see what happens. And then I go now only in my time slide what I think is gonna be breathing. So if I click here, this is way too fast. You can see that guy looks like he's just run on a marathon, and it doesn't look organic, it doesn't look nice. So we say, well, this guy is not actually quite cartoony, so I'm thinking that this is not working for me. So I'm gonna give it more room, and I'm gonna continue scaling. Again, I'm gonna go to the first frame, I'm gonna shift click, and then I'm gonna create a selection that tells me that this is what I'm gonna be covering, and this is what I'm going to manipulate by either offsetting or scaling. Now, the offsetting for now is completely unnecessary because we know that we're starting from frame 1. Again, Like I said at the beginning, I like to do that from frame 1. When I do VFX, I like to do it from frame 1000. But now here, you can start it from frame 1, 2, 20, it doesn't matter. Again, let's take this guy, I'm gonna scale it, and I'm gonna put it to, I don't know, let's put here 200. Okay? And I'm gonna take this little bar, which is now on frame 8, 108 to nearly 200 and see what happens. So when I click here, I'm gonna click that button so I can scale it. You can see, obviously I had to go further because it runs out because everything is being scaled. But let's leave it up for now and see what happens. Okay, so we know that this is 100, 100 and, I don't know, make sure they are sort of exact numbers. 144, and this one will be the other frame, which is 188. See, it will be 44 frame up to here and another 44 frames out to there. That's where we go 188. So let's analyze it and see what is the timing with 188. So pretty much what I'm doing is this breathing, one breath, this character is going to take 88 frames, which means if you translate it at 30 frames per second, that breath is going to take, I don't know, second or 2 seconds or something like that. So let's click here and then keep an eye on this because we need to get the timing correct. And that's why this is critical, guys, to get timing, making sure that you are here working at 30 frames per second and the playback speeds at 30 frames per second, because otherwise it will go really fast. So look at that. Now the guy is breathing using 88 frames, and you will think, well, actually that guy looks like he's huge, a giant. He's huge. You see how long it will take that to breathe? So actually it's too big, and then you have to go and retime it again. So I'm gonna go here, scale this up, and again I'm gonna select this, shift select all the way to that so I can encompass this selection, and then I'm gonna bring this guy to about 40 because I think that's the timing that I sort of manage for this character. Again, guys, that will be totally depending on your character. Depending on your character, you will have different numbers. Just to clarify here, make a note, you don't have to follow the same numbering as me. Okay? So I'm gonna go all the way down here and I'm gonna bring this dude all the way to 140. So by doing this, making sure that this line is there, this one is snap at 120, and that's fine. If you ever have things that are not 100% accurate, you can select all of them, go into view or curves and tell them to, this one here says snap, can't remember what they are, curves, and I think this one here says snap, keys, insert, tangents, list, edit, snap. You see, by doing this you can make it snap to times, snap time multiples of 1, so it will be multiples of 1. Again, so I left this guy at 100, this is 120, and this is 140. Now for this case I want to make sure that this guy is right in the middle between these two. Whatever of number of frames that you chose for that, make sure this dude is always in the middle, because that will be the breathing right in the middle. Okay, again I'm gonna take this guy to 140. Okay, and then I'm gonna play again. I'm gonna keep an eye on this and then see what happens. Okay, so I think this guy works at 40 frames per second. Okay, now look at this. So this frame, and you click here, you shouldn't see any changes at all. You shouldn't see anything happening. It will be exactly the same, because the first frame needs to be exactly as the last frame in order for the loop to work. If you don't have the loop working, then you will have clicks and jumps inside Unreal, because you will say, oh, the files are not matching. But there is an extra specification you have to do, because otherwise you will still have an extra frame, and I'll tell you that in a minute. So you play this, okay? You can see that this guy, based on his size and stuff, it works at 40 frames. So I know, from this point on, I know that what I have to export to Unreal is 40 frames minus 1. And the reason minus 1 is because the first frame is 1, but I don't want the frame here to be repeated again. So this is the last frame, so when it repeats in Unreal, it will go to this frame, which is essentially this frame, and then it will be repeating. So you're always going to export the whole animation minus 1. So again, when I export this, I'm going to export 39 frames in this case. Doesn't matter where you are here, you still need to export 39 frames, because that's something that I established. I established in my character that the guy works at 40 frames per second with no problem. Okay, so you got this, okay, and you can see that the character is having a little bit, you can see in the middle, when it goes in the middle, there's a little bit of a finger, so this could be work. I think I showed you the one where I invested more time. It looks way better than this. This is just one that I did in probably an hour or so. I am not going to animate the tail, because the tail I want to make it dynamic, it's inside Unreal. The cloth as well, I'm not going to animate that because it's going to be cloth inside Unreal. But you can see here that this sort of feels natural. Now, what happened if you forgot to do this? If you are here working at 24 frames per second, you will be working at different frame rate. But let's say that you remember this, but you forgot this. You will say, okay, I'm gonna play it. Look at that. You think, oh my god, that's too fast. Yeah, it's too fast because actually it's not playing at 30 frames per second. It's playing as fast as the graphic card can take. Look, the graphic card, my graphic card can play this scene at an average of 70, 60 frames per second. It varies. So this is not my real time. So you say, well, this is too fast. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go here because I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna take all this stuff here again and I'm gonna make it longer. And that's fine, that would be like the sensible thing to do. And then I'm in 158, for example. Let's say I'm in 158. And then I'm going to play it now. And now I say, okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. But when you import this into Unreal, it's not going to play it at this speed because this is the wrong frame rate, because it's actually playing as fast as my graphic card can. This is being capped at 30 frames per second. So when I do this, this is how it's going to play in Unreal. Now it's going to play really slow. Okay? And probably 58 frames per second looks better than the one. But anyway, I set over 44. It doesn't matter. So you can see this one here is actually not bad. If you want to do this, feels a little bit slow. Perhaps that's why I chose the 40. So again, I'm gonna undo this and I'm gonna go back to what I had, which was 40 frames. Okay, so if I open this file again, this is what I have here in my idle. Okay, idle 1. I had this stuff here. Okay, I had it at from 100 to 140. This is what I did. Okay, now once you have that, then you have your animation, but obviously the animation at the moment looks too stiff, too robotic. And this is the key, guy. This is what you need to keep an eye on this. Now you need to remember and make a note when you're doing your animation, and this is applies as well for the walk cycle, for the run cycle, and perhaps to a certain extent to the jump cycle. With the jump cycle is slightly different, and I will show you then later on how to fix that, how to do that. Now the issue here is that at the moment everything is happening at the same time. So now you think about it. When think about the movement of the body as a shock, as a byproduct of one motion or one action. So if you're walking, you hit your foot first, then your knee react, then your hip react, then your spine react, and then your head react. So it is like a chain reaction. One thing happened first, then the second one happened, and the third one happened, and then so forth. When you're walking, you don't move your arms, both, exactly to millimeter precision at the same time. When you're walking one step and your hands is forward, and then you do the other step and the other hands is forward, then you don't know where that hands is be. It could be a little bit further, it could be a little bit high, or it could not happen at the same time while you're walking. Some hands will be faster, some half movement will be slower. And that is the beauty. That's what you need to add to your character, which is giving that organic look. It's like not everything happen at the same time. So the way this is set up is that this happens at the same time as this, which is fine. But here, everything is happening at the same time. So you can see that the arms move at the same rate as the spine, the head, and even the fingers move at the same rate. So that is giving you that horrible sort of robotic sort of perfect look, because nothing happens at the same time. So when you're doing your animations, for example your walk cycle, if you're moving your foot and then you're gonna move the other one, make sure that one foot is 2-3 frames behind than the other one. So when it moves, you're always gonna have a little bit of a difference, and your eye, because your eyes is so attuned to finding things like that because of evolution, then you will be able to make it look way more organic. And this is the key how to do that. Okay? Now I need you to put in your mind that we know number 39. Okay, we did 40 frames, but you need to remember that you need 39 frames. That's all you need. 39 frames. Because we are going to export to Unreal 40 frames minus 1. The loop is, the first frame is exactly the same as the last one. We cannot export 40 frames because this loop will be repeating twice, this pose. So what we do is, we export 39, and then when it restarts again, it's going to start on 40, which is essentially this one, and it will keep going. Okay? So that will be from frame 100 to frame 139. But you cannot see them as in, I had to export from 100 to 139. All I want is, I need 39 frames. Doesn't matter what I get them from. And this is going to make a little bit more sense in a minute. Now, so what am I supposed to do next? I'm going to make 2 more copies of this keyframe. Essentially, I'm going to take these keyframes and I'm going to paste them here and here again. So I'm going to make 3 copies. Okay? And that is going to make sense for you in a minute. Okay? So for that, I'm going to need 40 times 3. I'm going to need another 180 and another one's 220. Okay? I'm going to zoom out here. So I'll go 120. If my math is correct, that will be correct. Yeah, that will be correct. So we 2 here, 2 there. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. So how do I do that? And this is quite tricky, guys, because you need to follow this specifically. Otherwise, it will not work. You say, "What am I doing wrong?" Now, as anybody is following up to this point? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. So this is how we're gonna do these 3 copies. There's several ways to do it. You can just copy them here and then paste them here, and then it will work. So you can essentially do this. You can select this and then select all the way till there. Okay, right click, copy them, go to the first one here and then paste them. And you essentially had another copy, you see? And then you go to this section and then you paste them again. And you will have 3 copies. That's one way of doing it. So now this will be exactly the same. This frame will be exactly the frame as this, and as this. You can see the character doesn't move. The same, this is exactly the same as this and as this. You see, there is no movement. It means that they are exactly the same. So now when I play this, I don't see any different. It's just doing it 3 times. Okay? And now we know that this frame is exactly the same as this frame. And you always have to keep an eye on this, because if you don't get this like that, it means that you did something wrong. Okay? So that is one way of doing it, probably the easiest one. Okay? The other way of doing it is you select the keyframes here. You can copy them from here. Or you can, again, if you're going to do it from here, you have to go here, shift, middle click and drag, and then select all of them, and then you copy them. Okay? And then you paste them. You have to make sure that when you paste them, you are exactly the same here, because if you are here and you paste, you see there's a little bit of an offset there. So you can see now that this frame, look at that when I play it, look. You see there's a little bit of a stop here, look. There, look. So that we're breaking the loop. So we have to make sure that when we make a copy, we stay right there. It will understand that because we're in this section, we are going to actually replace the same key that we copied from here, but it's exactly the same, so it will not make any difference. Okay, so you know how to do it from here. And again, you right click here and you just paste, go to the last frame and make sure that you're in the right frame, and you paste. And you have 3 copies. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, you can do it through the graph editor, which is here. You select the keys, you right click here, sorry, you click here, you say copy. Oops, what did I do? I did some crazy stuff. Okay, you select all the keys, but you have to make sure that everything is selected, obviously as here, so you have all the keyframes in there. Select this, edit, you copy them, then when you go here, you have to select the last frame here, and you paste them. There you go. And then again you go to this last frame and you paste them. You have to be in the actual frame where you want to paste them. And you paste them. That's exactly the same. The reason this looks slightly different from the one before is because the arrangement that you have here is different, and that would be in view. You can make it look like this one, absolute, stack, or normalize. Number 1, 2, and 3. You press 1, 2, or 3. So this is just a viewing method of doing it. That's the same. So I think the safest to do is doing it through here. Let me do that again. Okay, again, I'm gonna have to click here. Shift select this. Shift middle click and drag to here. Right click, copy. Be in that specific frame. Paste it. Guys, make sure that all your keys are exactly in frames that they have no decimals. Okay, go here and you paste that again, and you go now 3 copies. This frame is exactly the same as this frame. Now remember that now I have room to choose 39 frames, whatever I want from here. Okay, if I say, hey, actually I don't like that this character starts like this, I like it when it starts like here, fine. I'm gonna now export 39 frames starting from 110. So I go here and I say, hey, from 110 I'm gonna plus 39 plus 40. Let's keep it with 40 so it's stuck in the same. That would be 150 here, right? Now again, look, 110 is exactly the same at 150 because I chose 40 frames. So I have room now to maneuver here and say I can choose now 39 frames from whatever I want, because I decided actually starting here I don't like it. I like it when it's a little bit down, okay, and that's fine. So you have the ability now to choose 39 frames, or in this case I did 40 so I can make sure they're exactly the same. I can now choose 39 because I decided I was 39. Doesn't mean that your guys is going to be 39. Please watch the tutorials again. It doesn't, you're gonna say, I don't wanna hear anybody coming and saying to me, Louis, but why when I choose 39 frames doesn't work for me? There you go, that's your answer. It is specific to the character. You chose 50, you chose 30, you chose 28. That depends on the body, the character, the height, the size, whatever. Again, going back to this. So now I have the ability to choose 39 frame here from whatever I want. Now let's go back to the organic thing that we talked about. Because at the moment, everything happens at the same time. Look, the guy goes down at the same time and everything goes at the same time. Don't like that. Now this is when it starts getting really interesting. Now, how about when the character goes down, the arms go down but slightly behind, not at the same time, okay? So how do we do that? So we can do is we can take the controls, in this case the arm controls, okay? Let me see this animation here. I'm gonna take the arm controls, these two, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all those keys, and I'm gonna take, for example, this one, I'm gonna take this one. Okay, let's start with 1. I'm gonna select that, I'm gonna select all these, and I'm gonna middle click and drag. I'm gonna press shift so it snaps to one axis, and I'm gonna move it, at the moment you see, I'm gonna move it 3 frames before. I'm gonna move it, I don't know, 4 frames. Now look what happened when I play. Now look at the hand, how it behaves. Look at this hand now, this arm, sorry. Look what happened. Tell me that doesn't look more organic now. Now the hands is happening, but not at the same time as the other one, at the rest of the body. It's happening, the movement is happening 4 frames before. Thus giving that organic look, you know. Now what happened with this, I'll take this, the other one, and instead of shifting it 3 frames before, or 4 frames before, I'm gonna shift it, I'm gonna press shift, because you press shift, you're just gonna snap it to one axis. You press shift, middle click and drag to, I'm gonna say, hey, start now, 3 frames after. Oops. I'm gonna put this back to 100. So look what happened now with arms. Look at the arms, how they behave now. Look. It looks way more organic. Just look at the simplicity of this. I only shifted the keys 4 frames on one direction and 4 frames in the other direction. When I say shift, I mean I'm shifting it in time. I'm making that the one arm happens 4 frames earlier and another arm to happen 3 frames earlier. Look at that. Look at this simple thing, and you have made the animation 10 times better than it was a second ago. Only by doing this, because we're going through this simple principle that is like in animation or you and your body, everything doesn't happen at the same time. Things happen a little bit before or a little bit after. Okay? Now let's see what happened when I play around with the spine. Look, the spine is doing this, up and down. Okay, let me see this one here. It's as well doing this. So, okay, so I'm gonna take the spine. Let me see what this one is doing actually, this one here. There is some movement. Let's start with the bottom one, this one, the main one. This one here does this, okay? Now, let's see what happened when I move down. I stay a little bit behind, and then I move the spine with the arms, not at the same time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the spine, the bottom spine I have here selected. I'm gonna shift, just select everything, and I'm gonna press Shift middle click, and I'm gonna move it, I don't know, 2 frames before. And then I'm gonna play now. Look at that. Now the spine is not happening at the same time as the arm. Okay, now I'm gonna take this one, and then I think what I did, I shifted this guy before, so I'm gonna make the one on top to happen a little bit. I think let me see how many times I shifted. I shifted this, let me see, I shifted 2 frames. So I'm gonna shift 1 frame, the one on top, okay, and see what happens. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna select all the control that I will keyframe, and I shift 1 keyframe, 1, okay, and then this one, I'm gonna take this one and then I'm gonna shift it forward 1 frame. So that will be 2 frames prior, 1 frame, and 2 frames afterward, this one. Let's play and see what happens. Look at that. Now the upper body is sort of slightly disconnected from the bottom of the hip, because even though there's a relationship between them, nothing is happening at the same time. So this happens first, then this happened afterwards, and then this one happened later. You can see the frames how they happening. Look. This is before. This starts on frame 98. Now this one starts on frame 99, and then the other one starts on frame 101. So, and now this one here, I'm gonna make the head now to happen even later, like that. Let's see what happened with the head now, the neck. Now look at this. Now it looks like it's actually going in a sort of cascade way. It's going arms in one, so it's like it looks so fluid and so organic just by offsetting this. I think at the moment it's too much, but you can see that everything looks way more organic. And then you can do the same with the fingers. You can say, well, this one here, I'm going to make it happen, but not as the other one. So I'm gonna move them, I don't know, oops, not like that. I'm gonna move everything like that. Now look at the fingers. They are not happening at the same time. Guys, never neglect the hands. The hands says a lot. So I'm gonna hide the control so you can see more clearly. Look at this. Look, simple shifting of the keyframes makes the whole thing 100 times better. But now you might say, well, Louis, but you fuck up the whole thing, because now I have some frames started on 101 and some in, look, I messed the whole thing up. Fine, I agree with you. I cannot take anything from here because it will not give me a loop. And I cannot take anything from here, it will not give me a loop. But I have a bloody loads of space to choose here. 39 frames that I think I like. That's it. So all the trade-off is I will not be able to choose anything from here to here, but you can see some frames start right there. You can see them here. And some frames start before. So from this section here to this section here, I killed it. And then the same from here to here. But I got all this room to choose 39 frames that I really like. I say, well, I'm going to choose when the guy is doing this. That will be like the neutral. Okay, I'm going to start on frame 120. I know that I need 39 frames, so 120. I'm gonna put it to 140 so I can see exactly the same frame as the last as before. Remember, there were 40 minus 1, so I put this to 140. Now, if I did everything correctly, if I click here and I click in the last frame here, it should be exactly the same. And it's not, fuck. So I think I messed up something. Okay, so oh my god, I think 39. I think I messed up something. I don't know what I did. Anyway, guys, it does work, believe me. I think I'm gonna open the one where I actually had the fix. I don't know why it doesn't want to work. Okay, frame 1, frame 40. It should be the same. Frame 20. Yeah. Anyway, it does work, guys, believe me, it does work. Let's try to do something. I don't know. Why did I do it? All I did was shift to the keys, and I just had to do and select the keys from 100. Let's try 103. 1 second. This theoretically, guys, this should work. 103 plus 40, that will be 143. Nope, 143. Okay, no, 143, man. Okay, so 103, 143. No, I think that one works. I don't know why this didn't work. 103, 143, it's exactly the same. So now I should have a loop, look. And we had to export from 103 to 142 because it's minus 1. So you got that, look. That is a loop. That is actually not adding the last frame that should. Because we know that we need 39 frames. Or my math is completely off. I don't know what I did wrong. So anyway, you can see here the character looks way more organic with a simple couple of shifting of keys and stuff like that. Okay? So, now we know that we had to export these 30 frames. So let's go and find the final that I added. So I did all this kung fu thing here. So I'm gonna ignore this because this is 001 and I just did, let me see what is in 002. I want to say this. And in 002, what I did was I did a shifting and then I selected the keyframes. Now here you see I selected from 150 to 140 and it's exactly the same. Look. And then I know that I had to export from 150. You see this one with a little bit more work. Look at the neck, how it goes slowly. So there is an overlap. This is where there be more time and work and polishing. Oops, why this one doesn't work? I think this one, okay, doesn't matter. Okay, this one here, you can see this one here, look, it looks way more organic. But this one I think obviously with a better, with more time, you can see especially the one that's held here is the head, that the head it stays behind and it gives you that little bit of a lag. And then look at the fingers, look at the arms. The cape doesn't matter, the cape is going to be, but you can see there's a little bit as well of swaying in the hips as well. So with more time, I think this was about 3-4 hours of work, then you will get something that looks way better. And all what it is, like I said, I already shown you what I did. I shifted the keys several times. I think probably I moved some of them and I forgot to select everything when I was doing the example. Probably that's what I did. But remember that every time you shift in something, you have to select the control and then select all the keys. Okay, and then you shift them. Okay. But you know, again, the same principle. All these key here's, they're not usable. All these key here's are not usable. So I got plenty of time, plenty to choose from here to here. And if I choose something different, let's say 120, I say I'm gonna do 20 plus 39. So I'm gonna put 20 plus 40. That will be 160. So I'm gonna put 120 and 160. And then that should be exactly the same. 120 and 160 should be exactly the same. This one, I did pay attention to that. So I think what I did was before I selected a control and I didn't select all the keys and I didn't shift all the keys. So some of the keys were not exactly the same. So I think that's what happened. So you can see that this is exactly the same. And now I got the same loop. It's just that I took a different segment. All you do is you have to make sure that you take 39 or 40 frames from whatever room you got plenty of room. And that's why we make 3 copies. So we have plenty of room to shift the keys around and then select a specific slot. But we need to go part by part and say, hey, first the keys, then the scaling for the timing, and say, okay, I settle for 40. That's it. You had to settle for 40 and that's it. So you know that when you export, you're going to export 39 frames. 40 minus 1. Because the first frame is exactly as the last frame. Okay, so that's something you need to keep an eye on. Okay, so now I have this. Okay, so this is going to be something, I'm going to close this for now, and then this is something that I need to do in order for me to export my animations. Okay, now this is how it works. So I'm going to close this, you settle and say, well, fine, I'm going to export from frame 120 to frame 159, because remember, -1. Okay, and it doesn't matter where you are, because when you bring it into Unreal, you will only bring 39 frames. It will not bring 120, 100, none of that stuff. It's just 39 frames from whatever you work on. Doesn't matter. Okay, the timing will be happening with the tick of the clock inside the game and the game that you're running when you hit play. Okay, so let's leave that there, and then we come back to this file. So now the first thing you need to do in order to export this is, I'm gonna go quickly here and I'm going to show you what you need to do. So let's test this, and then next week we continue with the walk cycle and the run cycle. So I've got the thing open here in my other computer. So character rigging, Unreal Engine projects. Okay, character rigging 2020. Okay, so here I'm gonna show you, this here is my file project that I created. Okay, and what I normally do is I create here a new folder, and this folder I call her source. And this is where I'm going to put all the files. So here I'm going to put the file that I'm going to need to import inside Unreal. Okay, just remember that anything that you bring into Unreal, it will be automatically converted into his own proprietary file format, which is the U asset. Anything, when you're doing your environment that you're working on, all that stuff, that's the way it works. You don't bring JPEGs, you don't bring PNGs, you import them and then they're converted internally. The same happened with the FBX, the same happened with geometry or whatever you want to bring on. It creates its own proprietary file format, which is UAsset. Okay, so I have this. Now I'm going to show you the 2-step process that you need to do in order to bring animation inside Unreal. First, you need to import the rig. Okay, and this is the rig that you are referencing for this animation, and we know that is here. In the reference editor, you can find it, and we know that that file is, you know that it's a reference because of the little diamond thing there, you know that. You can see it's this guy, which is a step 9 final rig. So we need to open that. So again, this is already saved. I'm not gonna save it, I'm just gonna open that final rig because that's the one that tells me, hey, that was the final file, file that I exported and I published there. Okay, I'm not gonna save it, it's already done. And now you can see here when it comes up that this is the final, and you have the rig with the stuff in here, and nothing is in sort of no animation. This is just the file that you are referencing when it comes to animation. So now from here we need to export step 1, which is the actual rig. So what we need to do is we need to select the joints, we select the joints, and we need to select the geometry. Okay, so now you select the geometry, the group geo, the geometry, and then you shift select the joints, which is this one here. Okay, so I think, I'm not sure if you can select this. I think I normally do is select the actual root joint, okay, which is the thing inside here, and I shift select this, which is the geometry. With those two selected, I press file, and then on here I'm going to say export selection, go into the options, make sure that I am exporting, not OBJ, what am I talking about? It has to be an FBX, and I think it's not set up. If you don't see the FBX there, because you need to go into Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and then the Plugin Manager, there should be here one exporter, which is type FBX, should be this one, the Game Exporter, or FBX. Just take this two. I think this is the FBX Game Exporter, but I think it needs to be this two. Either of these two, I think it's this one. So auto load, so it brings it up anytime. So now it should be available when you export the selection from here. You should have here in the drop down the FBX. Now the settings you need to do here are this. We're going into blah blah blah. What is the? Is it? Am I selecting the wrong thing? Maybe I'm selecting the wrong thing. Let's say File, Export Selection, and you need to go into this one. Sorry, I selected this one. This is a light version for mobile and stuff. So FBX, Export, and then here in the Include Options. Oh, I think you. Oh, okay. So you need to say Export Selection, and then this will pop up, and then the section that all the settings will be here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that folder that I just created, which is somewhere here. That will be no Unreal Engine project. This is oops, not that one. This one, and I have source. I open that, and I just call this, I don't know, charactering and animation rig dot fbx, whatever, and then here the settings are as follow. Okay, here will be reference options, none of that. Include file type, preset, include, yeah, geometry. You want smooth mesh, and I think you already done tangents and binormal. This is the two stuff that you normally ticked when you are exporting your stuff from Maya to Unreal. I think smoothing groups as well needs to be on. Animation, at the moment we don't need animation, but we need to tick this in order to make sure that we have skin selected, because that's the skin cluster we need to select. This stuff has a skin cluster, the one we did when we did the paint weights. So blend shape needs to be off because we don't have blend shape, but if you tick it, it will not recognize it and nothing will come out. Now we don't need to bake animation because we're not animating, but we need to have the animation in order to have this available for now. We don't need constraint, none of that stuff. Cameras, we don't need cameras. We don't need light. Audio, we don't need that. Embed media, none of that stuff, I think. Advanced settings, units, this is automatic. Axis conversion, I think Unreal does that pretty well. And here the FBX format. Now this is quite tricky because sometimes some of them work, some of them doesn't work. I don't know which is the one that Matt told you to use here, guys.
I think it's 2018.
2018. I've used for this, normally it's this one, 2014, 2015. And that works for me in ASCII. Try the one that Matt told you. If it works, let me know so I can update that next time, okay? But I'm going to play safe and I'm going to use the one that I normally use, which is this one, okay? ASCII FBX 2014 and 15. Okay? So, and then we hit export. And it comes out with this stuff saying some warning, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't care about that. Constraint export failed. The constraint doesn't work because this doesn't work. They're not supported in Unreal. Constraint that. That should be okay. Okay. That is it. Okay. So now we're going into Unreal. Everybody seeing this? So in Unreal here, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call this my character. Okay, and then here in my character, I'm gonna import it here. So I'm gonna hit import, and I'm going to go into content, but I go here into source, and I'm gonna import this guy. Okay, which is my FBX. Let's see if I haven't done this today for this stuff. I'm guessing this should be fine. So I'm gonna hit open, and this comes up, and this is what you need to do. At the moment, the naming convention here in Unreal different. So a skeletal mesh is the skin cluster. It's a different name. And the mesh is the geometry. Sorry, a skeletal mesh is the joint system with all the joints. And then the import mesh is the actual mesh with the skin cluster. And then here, import geometry and skinning weights. Okay, that's what you need to do. In terms of animation, don't import an animation. There is no animation anyway. The rest of the stuff here would be if you want to import things like materials and stuff like that. So import material. I don't remember what it was. I think they changed this slightly. I think this is slightly different now. In materials. I think this is at the moment is okay. I don't know what. I think it changed this. I haven't seen this. So information. That's fine. Let's hit import. And this is what happened. It brought the materials as well, the material for the cape, for the eye, which is good, just leave it like that. Now these three things happen here. You got the skeleton, you got the rig, which is the geometry, and you got this stuff called the physical asset. And this is something called the physical asset, or the fat asset, which is the physical asset, P-H-A-T. So this stuff here gives you some error, bind, poses, things. I don't know what that is. I don't care. Let's close it. So it brought the colors and everything, which is good. Now, if we double click on any of this, it will pop something here called persona. Persona is a system that wraps around all what is animation related inside Unreal. So I'm gonna click on this guy, and this pops up here. I'm gonna put it here, and I can see I have the character here, and it's correctly aligned. That's not a problem. You cannot see this cape because the material needs to be double-sided, so you double click on the material, and then by this one selected here, you tell them that the material is two-sided, and you save it and apply, compile it or something, and then you should be able now to see the materials on both sides. Okay. So now when I go here, you can see I can see that because now the material is two-sided. All you have to do is just select this guy here and then tell them two-sided, and that's it. And then you compile it, and that should do it. Okay. This penetration thing is fine just because there is nothing in there. So you can see now that we have three tabs here. We have skeleton, we have physics, and we have mesh. Mesh, this is the mesh with the skin cluster, and this is the skeleton. If you click here, you have all the stuff that we had before. If you want to see in the viewport, you can hit show. Go into what was it? Character, I think it is. No, character, bones. Only selected. No, show all, and you can see this is all the stuff that we had inside Maya, and this is all working. Look, in the skin cluster, if you select this, you can see you can rotate and all that. But this stuff has a rig. So now this is the joints, this is the mesh, which is exactly the same. The mesh is the one with the skin cluster. This is the joints, okay? And this is here called the physics, which is this stuff here. And this is the stuff that allows you to create collision. This is stuff that we're gonna tweak for getting the geometry colliding with the tail here, the ponytail and the cloth. And I think if you hit the button simulate, you can see that goes like that, and it gives you this ragdoll thing. You press shift right click, then you can just moving it around like that, and you can just turn this into a ragdoll, okay? And this is pretty much what you're gonna see, okay? So when you see this system is that if you got some logic or programming done, then the ragdoll is in place, and as soon as it's dead or something, then he just falls and then looks like he just lost. He's just pretty much dead. So this is the stuff that allows you to create the collisions. You see that collides, so you can see that the arms collide, and this stuff is only temporary there. So I think if you don't want to see this, you can say don't show character bodies, only selected, or wireframe none, and then when you hit this, you can only when it simulates, it comes up anyway when it simulates, so it doesn't make any difference. So where was it? Character bodies solid wireframe. Yeah, like that. So let me see. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, so and you can, for example, if I select, let's say that I select one that I think is roughly around the arm. Let's say that this one is the arm. So if you click here and says only simulate the selected one, you can see. You see. So, and you can literally have your animation and then tell them, hey, bring me the run cycle, but then this arm is gonna be physical, and then you can see that the character is running and he has like one arm dead or something, like, I don't know, one of the limbs is dead or is numb or something. And you can tweak all these rotations, all those things to collide, how fast they go, how heavy they look. So yeah, that's one thing that you can do, but we're not gonna go too much in depth of that because that's pretty much another course on itself, another module. So again, the stuff that you need is your skeleton and your rig. Okay, so at the moment we have three things, or two things particularly. We have these two guys. Okay, this one is something that is automatically created by Unreal when you import. which is this, the physical asset. Oh, sorry, no, it's not that one. It's this one. This is the physical asset. This is what is imported together with this. Okay, this is the mesh, and this is the skeleton. And obviously bring the actual materials. Okay, I'm gonna save this. So how do we export the animation from Unreal? Okay, from Maya. So we know that we exported the rig. So now we need to import animation that we've done. So I'm gonna open that file, which is the file that has the animation that I just did, the idle. Final. I'm gonna go into the final. And then now in the final thing here, I already got selected that I need from here. I need frames from frame 150 to frame 189. Okay. So 50 to 189. 190, I don't need it 90 because it's exactly the same as 50. So we need 39 frame. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to select, when you export animation, you don't have to select the stuff that we did before, which is selecting this and this. We have to only select the joints. Because the joints is the one that are gonna bring all the animation. Okay, the joints bring the animation. And then we're gonna double check in here in a minute. And then you're gonna bring the animation into Unreal, and then Unreal will say, hey, the joint that you're bringing are exactly the same name as the one you have in this character. Do you just want to import the animation? And say yes, and that's it, you import animation. You don't have to import actually new skeleton. Just the animation is automatically copied into the sort of receiving skeleton that you already have in place here. Okay? So it's that straightforward. Okay? So how do we do that? So we select this, okay? And we tell them export selection, go into the options, FBX export, export selection. It goes into this. We're gonna call this character rigging. We're not gonna call rig, we're gonna call it the idle cycle. I'm gonna call it this final, idle underscore final dot FBX. And the settings here are slightly different. Okay. So here we're gonna say the rest stuff is fine. I need animation, yes, but this time I'm gonna bake the animation. And I'm gonna bake it from frame 150 to frame 189. And I think it's advisable to move this guy to the actual, I'm gonna do that, I think, because just in case. I'm gonna move this to 189, the clip, so I think because it will bake the whole time slide. So make sure that you have actually the time slide here with the final frame that you're gonna do. In this case it's 39, which is 189, if you count it from 150 onwards. So you go File, Export Selection, FBX Export, export that stuff. Again, I'm gonna call this idle underscore final FBX. Settings here are slightly different. The stuff is the same. Animation, yes, we're gonna bake from frame 150 to frame 189. Steps one by one, which means frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So we're gonna only export this. We don't need this because we don't. Now we're only exporting the geometry, the joints. We're not exporting the actual skin cluster or anything like that. The stuff here stays exactly the same. You don't need any of that. And then this one will be the same there. And then we export it. And it goes through this timeline, and it gives you. It's always gonna give you some sort of warning here, and it's all done. So now we can actually double check how we import by just going into creating a fresh scene. File, import, go into the options, select FBX, import, and I'm going to go and find that, which is in here. Now, a quick word there. The reason I have this file, guys, source is because if this was a game, you will compile this game, and then you can just take this folder out, and you know that all your sources in this folder, and you just take it out, and then you will not bloat your project. Okay, that's just one way of working. So I'm gonna import this guy so I can see inside here Maya and see what it looks like. So you can see here that I export. Oh, he brought this stuff in. That's interesting. I don't like this. Let's see if that doesn't give me an error, but this here shouldn't be imported. You can see now, you see the animation is there. Now let's see if this stuff here brings you any error. I don't think so, because I think Unreal will not understand what's happening with this, because it's pretty much, if you delete this, you see it will not make any difference. And you can see that all this stuff has keyframe. Look, every single one of these things has keyframe. Look, it's been baked one frame at a time. So this is just for double check. I don't know if the tab that came with it, because it's part of the rig, sort of is gonna conflict with Unreal. If it does, all you have to do is bring it back in here, delete that folder, that file, and then export it again, and that should get rid of that folder and then give you a fresh one, fresh clean install. So look at fresh clean FBX. Again, you go in here, right click, I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna call these animations. So I'm gonna double click here, and I'm gonna hit import, and I'm gonna bring this guy in, and it reads there and says, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to, it doesn't work? Yeah, okay. So now it's different, because now it's recognizing that only you are importing joins. But because there are two skeletons inside this project, one is the one you have, and the other one is this dude here. So it's gonna give you an option here. The animation that you just have, which skeleton do you want to use? And then you can see here, you go, my skeleton, which is character animation, and the Unreal mannequin skeleton. So if you do this, it's gonna bring the animation and put in here, but because these joints might be named differently or different joint, it might not work, it might give you an error. But you know that this guy is exactly a match of this, because that's what we exported from. So here, animation length, the exported time, in this case was 39 frames. This stuff here doesn't change, nothing on this chain, and we say import. So now it gives you some errors. Well, let's ignore those guys, I don't care. Now when you double click on this, look, it put everything in the right place. If we only export the joint, you can see that we're exporting from Maya only joints, nothing with the skin. But because the animation knows, hey, this stuff is exactly the same hierarchy as the one we just imported, when you double click here, you see, you go your animation. And now you have an extra tab here, look, in the persona system. You have the original skeleton one, the skin cluster, the physics, and the animation. And now you have from 0 to 38, which is, if it's 0 base, are 39 frames. And now you have your first animation already here imported. And that's the animation that it plays exactly at the same speed as it plays in here, as long as you exported everything the way I told you, which is making sure that everything is 30 frames per second and the playback speed is 30 frames per second, and you should be fine. And this is just, guys, your test bed. So now what we have to do is do the walk cycle, the run cycle, the jump cycle, and then we steal all the crap from the skeleton one, and then we just copy into this one, and then you go your character, delete the guy, and then you go this character, and then when you run, is your character is gonna be running, not the other dude. Because at the moment, even though we have all this imported, if you click here, the system still recognizes that this is the main character. See? And you can see here, if we analyze this character, content, mannequin, you see character, and you see this one has the animations. Look, this one has, you go the idle. Look, you go the jump beginning, the jump end, the loop when it's jumping in the air, the run, and the walk. Look, this is the stuff you need to do. Okay, and that's gonna be the next class. I'm gonna tell you how to sort out the walk cycle, the run cycle, and then export it, and you will have the same stuff that we have in here. So you just advise you to create your own project in Unreal, and you should be up and running. Okay, guys, that's it for today. This is the class for today, so you know that what you have to do, and then you know how everything works. I will stop the recording now here, and then I will upload the files tonight, and you should be up and running with no problem if you have done everything before up to now. That's it for today, guys. Any questions so far about this in general that you want to share with the rest of the group, guys, or you just wanted to? If you want to talk to me, you can talk to me individually in the help room. For those who want to stay over. No questions, I guess. Okay, guys. I'm gonna stop the recording now.